Your fantasy basketball rankings are wrong. You may know me as the guy who's won 36% of all his fantasy football leagues the last 20 plus years, but I have an even better win rate in fantasy basketball. If you see my fantasy football content, you know that I find linear, non-conditional rankings to be very hard to decipher based on your team's specific needs. But fantasy basketball is literally 100 times crazier. That's probably why way fewer of you actually play fantasy basketball than fantasy football. But shout outs to all of you who play fantasy basketball and are still in it at this point in the season. I'm going to break down 4 factors that make fantasy basketball rankings so opaque and what you should use instead to rank talent and win your leagues. Number 1 is how much player value wavers week to week. I made a video already talking about how Brandon Pajemski is actually identical practically to Nikola Jokic if you factor in some weeks where he plays 5 games and the Nuggets only play 2. But honestly, you can't be elite at fantasy basketball unless you're constantly analyzing schedules. How do you analyze team schedules? Well, at my site fansports.com, I built a free schedule analyzer that you can look at for all the NBA teams to see what they have coming up this week in your team's playoffs, etc. Built it for myself to save myself literally dozens of hours during the season having to check this game logs manually. Second factor is the biggest barrier to entry for fantasy basketball, which is the differences of formats. Are you in an ESPN league where defense and scoring volume matters more than anything? Or are you in a Yahoo league where true shooting percentages and efficiency matter much more than they do in other formats? Or are you in a CBS league where counting stats and triple doubles are the most important thing and efficiency is out the window? And honestly, rethink your life a bit if you're using CBS or fantasy sports at this point. Or maybe you're in a sleeper league where only one score matters every single week, or there's some other funky format that your commissioner decided to put in. Or maybe you're in a 9 category league, which I consider the truest form of fantasy basketball rather than points league. Player values vary widely depending on your format. The third reason why fantasy basketball rankings are kind of a joke usually is that in categories leagues, you are often not caring about at least 1 or 2 categories. Punting and semi-punting categories is a necessary strategy based on my experience to win your league. And oftentimes midweek, based on your matchup, you will know whether or not you should even care about a category. Dyson Daniels could easily be the number 1 overall player if you really are just desperate for steals. And this is the feature I'm building out next on fansports.com, is ranking players based on your actual category needs. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be a premium feature though. And finally, are you win now or are you just looking ahead at the playoffs with your playoff spot locked up? Injuries and the frequency of them and rest days have completely changed fantasy basketball since when I started playing back in 2003. You need to evaluate for every player what their sit potential is during your crucial playoff week. Yet another feature that I'm looking to build out on fansports.com if you guys are into this sort of fantasy basketball content. What is the player's injury history? How many games do they miss for minor ailments? How often are their teams going to rest players, especially based on their incentives late in the season? That's what wins and loses leagues, people. So I'm putting a pause right now on making actual fantasy basketball rankings, but I want to build tools to help you win your league, so don't forget to check out fansports.com. Let me know which specific players you want me to talk about for fantasy basketball as well. Include your league format because that is crucial context. Gonna make more of these videos to hopefully help hundreds and hundreds of you win your leagues just like happened in fantasy football season. Thanks for spending a few valuable minutes of your day here. Stay learning. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.